I wake up in the morning, I take a sip of water, completely unaware that there may be thousands of plastic particles entering into my body. At lunch, I eat fish, more plastic. I go outside to play with my friends, I breathe the air, even more plastic. Now, here's a shocking question that I should pose. How did plastic become part of our lives in a way we cannot even see it? Scientists have discovered that there may be plastic particles in our blood, lungs, and placenta, that is in pregnant women. So today, join me, GRIMPSY, as we dive into the hidden world of microplastic, the invisible invader entering our bodies unknowingly. So let's begin. To understand microplastic well, we need to look at the meaning of plastic itself. Plastic is one of the humanity's most useful inventions. It is cheap, durable, lightweight, and found almost everywhere. But there is a problem. Unlike organic things, plastic does not fully decompose. Instead, it breaks into smaller and smaller particles every time, and that is what we call microplastic. Look at the categories of microplastic. We have primary and secondary. Primary are the ones that are intentionally made to be microplastics. For example, we have products in cosmetics such as glitters. We have our clothes which are made of acrylic, polymers and stuff. So that is microplastics. I'll talk of the secondary microplastics. Secondary microplastics are like big plastics like this body over here, breaking into smaller plastics by agents, natural agents like light, heat and stuff. So heat will come, make it disintegrate into microplastics. I ask myself, where do microplastics come from? The sources, exactly. Where are the sources? One of the major sources of microplastics is actually the industrial waste. They release industrial waste to water sources like oceans, rivers, lakes, and so on and so forth. So they end up contaminating our water we drink and some of the things that we use. Other sources include, and you might be actually surprised by this, as I actually even mentioned earlier, it's our clothes made of acrylic, polyesters, and nylon. As we wash our clothes and we pour off the water, then we release microplastics. Another source of microplastics is the car tires, the tire. So if I drive over the road, my tire might wear off or tear, and it will release microplastic on the surface of the road. So majorly microplastics are actually found everywhere. Like everywhere I go, microplastic. The toothbrush I use, microplastic. So everywhere in short, even construction sites, cosmetic industries and stuff. So we release a lot of microplastic. Glitters that we put on our faces to shine, so those are actually microplastics. So the sources are actually everywhere. When I'm talking about the exposure pathway, I'm talking about how do I get that microplastic in my body working. So one of the exposures is food. We can get microplastics through food, directly or indirectly. Directly in the sense that marine animals which live in contaminated waters where microplastics are. We eat fish, and we come and eat them. So that's how I get it directly. Well, indirectly is if I have a garden and in that garden I use water that is contaminated by microplastics or that is in a sewage thing or something, it ends up absorbing that water and ends up absorbing the microplastic itself. So the product that I can get is like I can actually get a microplastic in my plate, like in form of the food, unknowingly. So that's how we take in microplastics indirectly via food. Other sources is our clothes, as I mentioned earlier, and I think I've mentioned this like 2 times. As we wash and then we pour off the water, that's how we get microplastics in the environment. Another way we can get microplastics in our body is through drinking water. As I said, industry pollutes the water using the majorly pollutants is plastic, so they end up accumulating in our water. Another source is the hair. We can get the microplastics in the hair, so tiny particles can become hairborne, like they can be lifted up by hair and we end up breathing it. So that's how we end up having microplastics. We talk about the environment. I want to major on the ecosystem, aquatic ecosystem. Let's talk about the ocean now. So majorly, you see, like other creatures in the ocean, like turtles, they often mistake plastic as jellyfish and end up consuming the microplastic thinking they're jellyfish. Same to fish end up feeding on microplastics. Seabirds consume plastics, so on and so forth. So they as they feed, they will end up causing starvation, leading to death, and they will deprive the nutrition in it. So the ecosystem will actually be less healthier. The microplastic can also carry harmful chemical and pollutants, which might end up killing the aquatic animals in the ecosystem. I'm talking about the ocean because that is where the major pollutants of plastics are. What happens to a microplastic once it enters my body? It has found that we have some scenarios where microplastic can be found in our blood, the lungs, the breast milk, and the placenta. But other microplastic can cause inflammation on tissues. Others can cause, hormone disorderness in the body, and as the others can act like carriers of pollutants, diseases, and bacteria in our body. Preventing them will be difficult because they're invisible, but we can reduce the numbers. How? We can avoid reusable water bottles. We can use synthetic clothing less frequently, and we can use laundry filters designed to capture microfibers. We have other preventive measures that we can take. Think about this. The plastic bottle thrown away may still exist 100 years from now. Long after we are gone, it may continue breaking down into smaller and smaller particles. Those particles can travel through rivers, oceans, soils, wildlife, and eventually back to us. Microplastic actually reminds us that our actions are concerned to the environment in a way we often cannot see. The good news is that awareness is actually growing about microplastic. By making smarter choices and reducing public waste, we can help protect our planet and future generation. So if you learned something new, just hit the like button, subscribe button.